Hi, these are action figures, Henry and Frankie, who are dressed in costumes from about the 1840s. They're characters in a novel, and I'm going to demonstrate their clothing by undressing them and describing their costumes. First, here's Frankie. Her name is Frances Wheat, and in the novel Picnics at Walden Pond, she is a woman from the future who goes to the past to meet one of her idols, Henry David Thoreau. Now, I've had to make all of her clothing. I did find some patterns for clothing from the 1840s for Tonner dolls, but I found that I had to modify the patterns considerably so that they're really not the same as what you would get if you bought the pattern online. In this costume, she wears a little day cap. Her character is married, and married women in the 19th century wore a little cap during the day, and then when they went out, they put a bonnet on over the cap. So if you see a picture of a woman from the middle 1800s and she's wearing a bonnet with lace around the edge, the lace is often this lace that's on the cap that she's wearing under the bonnet. She has on a dress here that is fairly low cut. So, because she's wearing it during the day and not for a party, she's wearing this chemisette or chemisette that's sort of like a dickie, and it's designed for modesty or just to make the dress a little less party-like during the day. Her sleeves in the middle 1840s, they had sleeves that were fairly tight-fitting and often with this little extra sleeve or a little cap, and sometimes it would just be a longer piece of lace to give the effect of another little oversleeve. And the dress is tightly fit to her figure. She doesn't have her corset on because she's a doll, and she didn't really need to have a corset to cinch her little body in. But she does have a corset, and I'll be showing you that. And the dresses were often at a point here, V-shaped. And they were poofy. The poofiness of the dress was made by wearing several petticoats until the 1860s, when the hooped petticoats or crinolines became popular. So she is wearing 1, 2, 3 petticoats. That was fairly common, actually. More like 4 or 5 might have been worn, or they might have worn what was called a corded petticoat, which would be a petticoat with cords, tight little rolled up cording just sewn in layers all the way up the petticoat to give it more body. But I kind of liked the effect of several really lacy, frilly petticoats. It was a very feminine time period. And then under this, she has on her pantalettes and stockings, and she has a garter holding the stockings. Actually, it's just a rubber band for her. And then her little shoes are soft. The shoes in those days might have been more like little ballet slippers. And she isn't wearing her chemise because she isn't wearing her corset. But I will show those to you and demonstrate what they were used for. Show you her little chemisette here that she's wearing under the dress. See, it's not a full blouse, it's just like a partial blouse. Just designed to fill in that part of the dress that might give her a little visible cleavage, which wouldn't be all that appropriate during the daytime. Okay, here's Frankie in her chemise. The chemise is the first thing that a lady put on, and it was designed to keep her body oils off of the corset because it was much easier to wash the chemise than to wash the corset. The chemise was often made of linen or of cotton, and it could come down off the shoulder like this if her dress was a party dress that was off the shoulder. And usually at her time period, 1840s, there was a little sleeve. I'll give you an example of that. This is an authentic chemise from the 1840s or 50s. It's made of a very fine linen, and of course everything was hand stitched at this time. All of the clothes that I've made for the action figures are also hand stitched in case they go back in time. We don't want anyone thinking that they are from the future. This is so beautifully made. Every little stitch is so tiny you have to view it with a magnifying glass to see the teeny tiny little stitches. And it is absolutely beautiful to look at and very soft and wonderful to wear. It amazes me that we can actually wear something that was made so very long ago, over 150 years ago. Here's Frankie's corset. It's the next thing she would put on. In the center of the corset is something called a busk, and in the 1840s this was made of wood or possibly bone, and it was just meant to keep the woman's body stiff. See here. And if she had a boyfriend, he might carve a design on it. It was a popular gift for a lady, especially if the fellow was a sailor. He would do a scrimshaw busk for his lady. Now, as you can see, Frankie's having a hard time lacing herself up in the back. She's going to need some help here, so I will do that for her. Her lacing goes up to the waist from the bottom and then down to the waist from the top, the way a real corset would. And then get your hair out of the way, my dear. Oh, she's very modest. And this is how she looks with the corset on over the chemise. Next, she'll put on her pantalettes, which at this time period are rather like two tubes, one for each leg, and then they're tied around the waist, and they are open at the crotch and in the back for convenience, so that the lady doesn't have to take off layers and layers and layers of stuff when she's in the privy. And there she is with much of her underpinnings on. We already had her stockings on. Here's her first petticoat. I don't know if they had petticoats with Valentine hearts on them in the 1840s, but I had this material and I thought it would look cute. Here's her second petticoat. This one's made of linen, and a little bit of the other one shows beneath. Here's her third petticoat. It's muslin. No particular order. I've switched the order around, and I kind of like this one because the longest is the one that went on first. And then they kind of hang over each other. And if some lace is peeking out under the dress, that looks kind of pretty. And here's her dress. This one is a little calico print. It has these sleeve caps, which I refer to as the Romulan effect, because if you watch Star Trek, the Romulan uniform has a similar thing, only on Earth this went out of fashion in the 1850s. And here she is with her little day cap back on and her shoes. And I made the little shoes just by tracing around her foot. Here's a little bonnet I made to go with the dress. Ladies in this time period wore something called a cottage bonnet. And this one is a soft one, more like a prairie bonnet. I haven't gotten around to making her a fancier type of 1840s bonnet. And this is Henry David Thoreau, the action figure, in person. His outfit I also made myself by hand. His little pants are fall front trousers. Even though in the 1840s men wore pants with a fly, Henry was old-fashioned guy, and my assumption is that he might have liked the more old-fashioned fall front. And these are gray cord. We know that he wore corduroy pants, and he has a plaid shirt. The waistcoat is a informal linen waistcoat, and he has his cravat loosely around his neck. Men, even when they were informal then, they were a whole lot more formal than they are now. He probably would have liked jeans. His boots here, I have to get him some different ones because these have zippers. Well, that's it. That's the cute little action figure couple in their authentic costumes. And you can follow his adventures on Facebook. The Adventures of Henry David Thoreau, the action figure, and his friend Frankie. Henry reminded me that I should put in a plug for the book too. Available at Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Thank you.